Hey folks, Glenn May here with BassResource.com, and today I want to talk to you about choosing line for Texas rigs. Now, there's a whole variety of applications you can use Texas rigs for. So for me, it breaks down to basically 4 different types, and that is finesse fishing, your regular Texas rig fishing, which most people are associated with, throwing out in kind of sparse cover and docks and just Texas rigging, different plastics to avoid them from getting hung up. There's the flipping and pitching setup for heavy cover, and then there's the punching setup, which is heavy duty stuff. So let me go through the different lines that I choose for those different setups, starting with finesse. So for this finesse setup, Texas rig for baits such as like this. Kudos for anybody who knows what that bait is. But that's nice in Texas rig. What that does is, for a real finesse type, this is a split shot rig that I'm using. That's the weight I use on it. This is for the real slow bite, real soft and subtle. The fish have a lot of time to examine this bait and to look at it, and of course examine your line too. And typically I'm fishing this in clearer water. It's open. There's not a whole lot of cover involved. You're not going to get snagged up on a lot of stuff. Maybe it's a little rocky. So for those type of situations, I'm using light line. This is a light wire hook. It's only a 1/0 hook, thin wire, so you can overpower it if you're using braid. These thin wire hooks aren't going to, well, let's put it this way. You need your system to match. If it's a thin wire hook and you've got a lot of strong line, strong reel, and you got your drag set down, then that weakest link is your hook and you're going to bend it. And this is true for all these different setups I'm going to tell you. It's really dependent upon that hook that you're using. You want to make sure that you don't bend that hook out. So in this case, since it's a real thin wire hook, light line situation, I'm looking at 6-pound, maybe up to 10-pound, but 6-pound line is what I like to use. Either fluorocarbon, I like Cigar Finesse fluorocarbon line, or I'll use co-polymer line. And the real difference is, if I'm using fluorocarbon, if I'm really looking for that real subtle bite, I'm trying to keep the bait up off the bottom, let's say for example in a drop shot situation, that sort of thing. I'm using fluorocarbon for that real sensitive bite. If the fish are hitting it right on the fall right away, then I don't need that as sensitive of a line, so I may use co-polymer in that instance. But that's typically what I'm using, 6 to 8-pound fluorocarbon or co-polymer line. And you can use mono as well if you want. Mono's got nice stretch qualities to it, so which works when you're fighting the fish back in this situation. So that's finesse. So the other one, and the next one is Texas rig, your standard Texas rig. Which, what I mean by standard is you're looking at your 7-foot medium heavy powered rod, medium heavy power rod. I can say that with a fast action tip. This is your your typical Swiss Army knife of fishing, bass fishing. If you don't have a medium heavy 7-foot rod, you need to get one, because you can throw all kinds of baits with it. In this case, we're talking Texas rig. So with this, you can throw it in a variety of situations, and what I prefer to do here is throw this in sparse cover, scattered cover, scattered weeds, lily pads, patches of milfoil, patches of hydrilla, throwing around docks, logs, scattered bushes that are flooded, variety of things. It's somewhat open, but the fish are hiding in the cover, and I'm going to be throwing to that. So for that, I like to use 30-pound braid, typically. Sometimes I like to use Cigar Tatsu. That's fluorocarbon. I like to use the Cigar braid. That's one of my preferred ones. And this one, what I'm doing here today, is I've been fishing this Berkley Creature Hog. This is the Max Scent Creature Hog, which I really like. And I've been throwing it in open water like you see behind me. I've been fan casting it. So I want a greater distance. So in that case, I'm using Fireline Ultra 8 Fireline, 30-pound test, because it casts really far. And I'm just throw out the 1 o'clock, the 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. I'm just fan casting, covering water. These fish are out on flats, they're out in scattered bushes, out in deeper water. So just covering it that way is a great way to throw it. This Berkley Fireline works really well if you're throwing around docks, throwing around open weeds, that sort of thing. If I'm throwing around a whole lot of rocks if it's just or mostly rocks, then I kind of shy away from the braided lines. I tend to use more fluorocarbon in that instance. Braid tends to get scuffed up more, believe it or not, in rocks. As abrasion resistant as they are, they tend to get all scuffed up in rocks. So I like to use fluorocarbon or co-polymer, or maybe even monoline in those situations. About 30-pound test is about all I need in those situations. So moving on up, now we're going to go to the flipping and pitching setup. And for those, if I can get that in there, for those I like to get a little bit more heavy duty. In that case, I'm using a heavy power rod with a fast tip. I'm using here a 7.4 to 7.6 rod. But for the line, now I'm using Cigar Smackdown braid. It's a 50-pound test is what I'll go for. And for these situations, now I'm throwing it in flooded brush, flooded timber. I'm throwing it in heavy cover where the fish, you got to dig them out of those thicker weeds. That sort of thing. You've got to have the power of the rod. You've got to have the power of the braid. And of course, now with the hook, instead of using that 1/0 thin wire hook like I was using Finesse, and with the previous setup, I might be using a 2/0 to 3/0 standard size hook. Here, I'm using a 3/0 super line hook is what they call them, or a flipping hook. It's a thick wire hook. Again, you want that hook to stand up for the power that you're throwing, so you need to have a hook that can stand up to it. This rod doesn't flex much. You can see it just flexes right towards the end, and that's it. It's a pretty stiff rod because you're going to be throwing in this heavy stuff. So that's what I use for standard flipping and pitching. 50-pound braid. Works great for those situations. Now, the fourth kind, which I don't have hooked up today because I'm not throwing in it, but that's for fishing punching. Now, punching's a little bit different. Punching's you're fishing those big, vast mats of weeds. It's either hydrilla or milfoil that's topped over, and it's just a big mat. You've got to get that lure down through that thick matted weeds, and there's big fish underneath it, and you've got to haul them out typically with several pounds of weeds wrapped around them. It's a heavy load. You need some stiff, hard equipment for that. So with that, I'm using a heavy action or heavy power rod, usually a 711, something that stout. I'm using, again, a 3/0 to 4/0 stout flipping hook. And for that, for the braid, no less than 65-pound braid is what I'm using. The Cigar Smackdown works really well for that. A lot of guys like to go for 85-pound braid. I think that's a little stiff for me, but that's all right. You know, it's your personal preference, what you feel most comfortable with. The idea here is you're putting about a 3/4 to 1.5 ounces bullet weight in the front, and you're throwing a bait that's just like this. It's streamlined, so it will go through those weeds, and it's kind of a bullet shape, if you can see that, which is perfect for going through those weeds. And the fish are underneath it, and you hook onto them. That 65-pound braid, that's what you're going to need to haul those fish out. So those are the different setups I use. Those are the different kind of lines I use. There's no absolutes in fishing. There's no right or wrong. So if you don't fish it that way, you have a different way of doing it and it works great for you, do it. It's all about confidence. But those are what I use. If you're trying to figure out, like you're starting out and you have not sure which way to go, that's the way I do it. Watch some other YouTube videos if you want to get an idea of what you want to start with, but that kind of gives you a starting point to figure out the different types of lines to use for the different kind of covers and setup that you're fishing. Hope that helps. For more tips and tricks like this, visit BassResource.com.